Hey Bat fans, Luke here, ready to bat chat about another Bat book, and today we're going to take a look at a story within a series that might trigger some Batman fans out there. This one we're going to take a look at today is Cycle of Violence, which is Volume 2 of the series Batman the Dark Knight. Batman the Dark Knight was a title that originally came out right before the tail end of the pre-New 52 era, and then it was only a short, if I remember right, a 4-issue story, and then the series returned for the New 52, and it was one of the ones, I think it started the last of the four, because the main Batman titles that came out at the time were obviously Batman Detective, Batman and Robin, and the Dark Knight. And the Dark Knight, it started, I think, last when it was released as far as release order, and then it pretty much ended first. Primarily, I think it ended first mainly because, in my opinion, it started off really rocky. If you look at it, there's a bunch of people kind of talk about, the state of the Bat books in the New 52, and Batman the Dark Knight was one that kind of struggled to find its niche a little bit. First off, there's a reason why we're going straight to Volume 2. I'm not really going to talk about Volume 1, and maybe I will later on. But the problem with Volume 1 is that, and to put this very lightly, it wasn't very good. That was one where we had David Finch writing and doing the art, and it meandered a lot. But Volume 2 saw the arrival of Greg Hurwitz take the stage on writing duties. David Finch played to his strengths and did the art. And what happened when Greg Hurwitz came on board, we started to see a niche for the Batman the Dark Knight title. Whereas you're getting more of a center of attention on the Batman villains. And in this case, we have one. This is primarily, well, make no mistake about it, this is a Scarecrow-centric story. Then the next volume does a Mad Hatter story. That's Volume 3, Mad. And then Volume 4, which is Clay. I gotta remember my memory. I think it has 3. Well, it's Clay. It's either... definitely has the Clayface story, and it ends with the series ends with a Man-Bat story. And I can't remember if the Penguin story was a 2-parter silent story arc. Can't remember if it was Volume 4 or Volume 3. I can't remember, but either way, you see Greg Hurwitz bring a niche to the title, and this one I actually really enjoyed. A lot of people, you talk about Batman the Dark Knight, they're not going to like it at all. Myself, once you get past Volume 1, Volume 2, 3, and 4 are actually really good. This one probably being my favorite volume of the title, but again, it kind of wrapped up first, about 30 issues or so. And this is primarily, again, this is Scarecrow. And I want to say this kind of gives indirectly a Scarecrow origin story for the New 52, but it does it really well where it's not plainly a Scarecrow story for an origin story, but it really does tell a very good Scarecrow story in itself. There's a lot of books that are out there that I'm trying to hunt down my Batman collection. The original modern origin for Scarecrow, I think it's Batman 189, I think. That thing is just crazy expensive, so at least I have the New 52 origin. But anyway, so basically the story behind this is that Scarecrow is kidnapping all these kids. And the reason why he's kidnapping these kids, he's putting them in, he's basically putting them in a severe state of fear. And when they reach this state of fear, this is actually in case you actually see Gordon, they begin to perspire. And when they perspire, they kind of leave off this chemical release with their sweat due to the fear that Scarecrow's trying to use to create this super fear toxin. And again, what he's doing is these children, and it's starting to happen a lot where the children are starting to become kidnapped, but later released. But once they're released, they're severely traumatized. And it's mainly because Scarecrow is putting them to a point of so much fear that they kind of reach a point of no return, with the exception of the last child, which you'll kind of see as you kind of read through the story in this. But news obviously reaches Batman what's going on with these kids, and Batman needs to find out where these kids are being taken so he can kind of stop Scarecrow from what he's doing. And in order to do that, at first it starts with Gordon, but one of the kids, the last kids that's actually been released by Scarecrow, Batman talks to, and I can't remember exactly her name. Claire. Claire begins to kind of put out ways where Batman kind of detect where Scarecrow is, and in doing so, Batman finds out the location of the safe house that Scarecrow is using. But in the meanwhile, Scarecrow actually takes out Batman. Now Batman becomes a captor of Scarecrow, and he puts him in this really severe induced state of fear through this fear toxin that he's able to craft up. And this one's kind of weird. When you're reading this, there's a couple points in the story where Greg Horowitz is going to show you something or talk about something that makes you kind of scratch your head a little bit. But with the exception of the very last fear toxin that Scarecrow uses, the initial dosage, Batman, if you kind of been following up with Batman stories, he has grown somewhat immune to some of the Scarecrow toxin, with the exception of the last one, which is obviously a new serum. But Batman gets taken out, and again, he's put into this fear-induced state. Very torture-like. You see him put him hung up on this table in chains, and Scarecrow really just runs him through the ringer. And again, Batman's just terrified at this point. Now, again, every other Batman story up to this point, the Scarecrow fear toxin doesn't really affect Batman that much, because over the years he's kind of grown immunity to it. But again, with the exception of the last one. So how Batman initially gets taken down and held captive, it kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. But in the meanwhile, what you see is Batman kind of recount his origin and why he is the way he is. Why Greg Horowitz actually really does a really good job of, trying to sell the point of why Batman needs to always run to the dark versus never to the light in this case. And it was really well done. And while this is going on, you're seeing Scarecrow's origin as well. Scarecrow's origin, this is really dark. You actually see he's actually being used by his father as an experiment for himself to do the same thing that Scarecrow's doing this modern day. Put this son into this intense fear state so he can take his sweat and create some sort of fear toxin in itself. But the way he actually does it, it's just more than just lock him in a dark room as you initially think what it is. But actually what it is he's locked in this dark room with all these skeletons and horrific images and things of that nature. So you actually get a really good backstory of Scarecrow. And what Greg Horowitz does in this is, I'm not going to say you kind of feel sympathetic to Scarecrow a little bit, but you kind of understand the motives, the reasoning behind where he is. And actually Scarecrow does a tiny bit of a good turn toward the end of this, shows some sort of empathy with his last child that he actually kidnaps, which I'll kind of leave it at that. But so, as again, you're going back and forth, Batman and Scarecrow kind of recounting their origins, why they are what they are, but you actually see Batman actually escape. And how Batman escapes is strike number one. But actually, remember the thing I told you, Greg Horowitz actually does some things you're like, scratch your head a little bit. The first one is when Batman actually reaches the safe house, as I've shown quickly before. He gets hit by this fear toxin, and he's on a roof. And then when he's jumping through, go through the window, Scarecrow hits him with this fear toxin, as you see there, and then he just happens to fall in a yard, which has this false cavity into a cave, which goes into this tunnel thing that leads him to Scarecrow. That was mighty convenient. Just happened to fall in that one little trap. It's just, that one was kind of strike one. And strike two, how Batman initially gets out of, we'll call it a death trap, sure, why not? Actually, he's got his cowl on, but the rest of the uniform is taken off. So how does he get out? Well, actually quite simple, actually. I could show it somewhere around here. Maybe not. I'll tell you, but you almost want to see it too. Yeah, so he's hung up. So basically what he does is he says it right there. Move there. Activate wrist armor laser, which his armor is in this little tube, and it shoots out a little laser and it gets out the chains like that. That one, I was like, that is mighty convenient. But take that for what it is. The other thing that Hurwitz does, we'll save to the end, which I really don't want to go too far in depth about. But what does really good at this point, you actually see a really good fight between Batman and Scarecrow. I mean, it is gruesome and really bloody. I actually see Batman and Scarecrow fighting. Scarecrow got the Sith, and he actually impales Batman right through his chest area. But how Batman takes out Scarecrow, he actually gets his grappling gun and actually shoots him right underneath the chin, and he hangs there, allowing Batman to escape. At this point, he got a severe laceration from the skiff, and Scarecrow literally's got to rip out the grappling hook, and actually dislocates his jaw in the process, what you see. And the rest of the story, it's one thing that they didn't kind of just gloss over. The rest of the story, Scarecrow actually runs around with like a dislocated jaw. It was just gruesome and really well done by Hurwitz and Finch. You see Scarecrow kind of bring his plot together, kind of like we saw in Batman, where you have the 89 movie, the Joker run around getting money, money, money. And he throws out this toxin, his Jokerized toxin, the poison Goth City. Well, you've seen the same type of thing. Scarecrow with his new version of his fear toxin, used in this blimp provided by the Penguin, and releases the fear toxin into the city, which causes everyone to kind of go mad. And now Batman's got to combat this new threat, and how he does it, he actually goes in the Batwing, and we'll just say there is a way to find a cure to the toxin, which kind of goes back to the beginning of the story, and Batman has to make a near-death sacrifice, which kind of puts Damian Wayne actually shows up in this in a tough spot. But this kind of leads into the third thing you kind of scratch your head with Hurwitz on this part, is how Batman kind of saves the city. Basically, he's giving away a lot of his blood. We'll just leave it at that. And to realize to save the whole city the way he does, he had to really release a lot of his own blood, and he actually survives. And you're kind of like, okay, fair enough. All the while, there's this love interest that Bruce actually has, this Ukrainian piano player, and not 100% sure, but I think it's the same one that shows up in the next story, which kind of has a tragic ending. We'll just kind of leave it at that. Natalia, she's kind of in the periphery, kind of give somewhat of a Bruce Wayne angle to the story. And again, you actually see Scarecrow captured, brought back into the city, and he actually becomes a victim of his own toxin, because he actually had an extra vial in his clothes and accidentally snaps and gets released while he's in this prison in Arkham. So there's that. We end up with actually a zero issue, and if you're not familiar with the zero issue, this one's for the Dark Knight. In the year anniversary, each title in the DC line during the New 52 got a zero issue, which kind of served as a way to give an origin story. This one kind of gives somewhat of an early origin story to Bruce Wayne, kind of those formative years after the death of his parents. We actually see him kind of getting ready to go abroad to train, and kind of like the formative years, finding out about JoJo and things of that nature. So, overall, great story. Have to say, the art in this by David Finch is just superb. Again, gruesome, detailed. Love the dark coloring. It's a dark subject matter, and Dave Finch does a really great job in capturing this. The covers for this story, I'll kind of breeze through quickly. I think that's the second issue, but the covers, this actually has probably my favorite cover of the whole entire New 52 run, of the main covers. This one right here, this one, the Dark Knight issue number 10. It's just, that is just awesome. Just awesome cover. What else? Gotta go through some of the covers. Yeah, the covers in this was just great. I think that's issue number 11, the hardcover as well. Then you get to issue number 12. Quickly, there's issue number 12's cover to the right. Then 13, correct me if I'm wrong, should be them playing up. There's issue number 13. And then 14 should be the chess, if I remember correctly. Them two playing, no, that's 14. And then issue number 15, I'm not even going to pretend to remember all of them. Yeah, that's them, Batman and Scarecrow playing chess over Gotham. So the covers in this is just great, and that's the 0 issue. The covers are great, the art is great, the story is very good, save 3 little head scratchers. But yeah, I would say if you had some preconceived notions about Batman the Dark Knight, put that one aside, at least for this volume. This one, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. I enjoy the hell out of this story. It's great. It's a dark story, very well told, with the exception of 3 head scratcher. That's what's kind of preventing this being like a 4.5 or something like that. But art's great, color's great, line work's great, dialogue's great, just fun. And if you like a good Scarecrow story, I really, for a completed volume, I gotta go through and think about it. I can't remember if there are any other really good, pure volumes like this where you get just a great Scarecrow story, at least in the modern era. So definitely highly recommend this. 4 out of 5. Again, don't let the preconceived notions of the series kind of hinder what will be a fun experience if you read this. So anyway, those are my thoughts on The Cycle of Violence, Volume 2 of the Batman the Dark Knight in the New 52. I think I might do Volume 3. The Mad story, it's pretty good too. That's a Mad Hatter story. Maybe do Volume 4, and then guess kind of have to do Volume 1, but keeping things on a positive anyway. So anyway, hit me up in the comments below if you read this story. We'll bat chat and kind of go from there. So until next video, take care.